Hello guys, in this tutorial we're going to talk about Redux and how it differs from the use context API. It's really important if you're familiar with concepts like state, components, and props, as both Redux and the use context APIs are methods or ways to manage the state in your React application. And the state is basically a sort of store or holder for a piece of information or data that is going to be updated over time. And the updating of this of your state can be triggered by different it could be, for example, maybe an API response has been fetched, a user clicked a specific button, or maybe the component just needs to be rendered. As time goes by and as bigger as as your application grows, you're going to want to be able to manage the state in your application on a central level. And Redux is one of the most recommended and first approach to solving this problem. And while use context API, on the other hand, is a more newer approach, and is more recommended for smaller applications with where fewer states needs to be managed. But if your application is going to be really big and you're going to make use of a lot of states, then Redux is the go-to method. So if we just take a look at the code here, we can see that we have our basic folder or project structure. We have our app.js, which serves as the entry point to our application, and it is rendering our counter component. And the counter.js, that is basically where that is a component where everything is going to be happening, and it's taking these actions which I have in the actions. I have my actions creators, and I have the action types. So the action types we're going to be creating, by the way, a simple counter, and we're going to be either incrementing number, decrementing it, or just resetting it. And the action type, so this is I have variables for the actions, and I have the actual functions which returns a type that is going to be made use of in our counter.js, because that is where the functions are going to be actually defined and exported. And we also have our initial state, where we set our counter to a value of 1. So it's going to start from 1. You can make this whatever number you want to. And we have our app.css, which is basically a styling, or we're just styling how it's going to look, but we're not going to be really focusing on the styles. And we have a public folder. We have by the way, all the other codes I mentioned are in the source folder, while in the public folder I have the index.html, which basically comes with comes with when you initialize your React project. And this has a div with the roots. And so so if we take a look at this application, this is basically what it's going to look like. So I'm just going to reload this page, and this is being served in my this has been served locally on port 3000. And I'm also going to leave the link to the GitHub repository, because I actually cloned this from someone else's repo, so it's not actually mine. I'm just using this to showcase the difference between Redux and the use context API. So as you can see here, when I click the add button, the count is like the number has been incremented, and likewise the subtract decrements it, and the resets, which this is hard coded, that the reset is going to make the value 100, and we can actually make this whatever we want. So basically Redux is all about the actions, the reducer, and the store. And as you can see here, if I go to my reducer, which is the index.js in the reducers folder, you can see that the reducer takes the initial state and action as arguments and returns a new state. So basically it takes into account what the initial value was and what action has been dispatched. That is, if the user clicked on the increments, decrements, or the reset button, and then there's a switch statement here which executes the suitable function based on what action has been dispatched. So that is basically what Redux is all about. You know, it's all about the actions, the reducer, and the store. And the store is basically, you know, this buckets that holds the states, or you know, the actual information of our application. And you can see here, if I go to the index.js, we can start, we wrapped our application around the store. And so this is very important that you have this provider here. And if we're going to use the use context API, on the other hand, really all we have to do, I jotted down, you know, what changes we have to make here, and really all we have to do is replace our index.js and our counter.js, and then so that is basically gonna have a switch to from using the Redux to using the use context API or hook. So if I just changed our index.js and change it with this instead, and as you can see here, instead of the Redux store, now we're wrapping it with the counter provider, and I'm going to change our counter.js with this. And so this is using our the use context API instead. So now if I save this and I go back to my application, it's basically the same thing that happens. And so now we're using the use context API instead. And I mean, you might ask yourself, like, why use Redux, which use a lot more code, when we can just use the use context API? And that is a really valid question, and the answer to this is that you should use Redux when you are going to be making use of a lot of states, when your application is going to be holding a lot of information that needs to be updated. And Redux, you know, has a more, you know, generalized approach, as well as even there are a lot more like you can do with Redux that you can do with the use context. Use context is recommended when you're going to be working with small pieces of informations and a few, you know, states that are going to be updated. So that is basically, you know, the difference between Redux and the use context API. And I hope this video helps you in understanding understanding both the difference and which you should choose depending on your application, depending on your need, or what kind of application you're going to be developing. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.